Hello, Jenny here again, and today we're going to be making wholemeal scones from the Safe Food book. Now this is a really easy recipe and it's also very healthy, so let's get cracking on. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to preheat our oven to 200 degrees Celsius or gas mark 6, and also if you've got a fan oven you want to put that at 180 degrees. Now my oven is already preheated, so we're going to get straight on with measuring out the ingredients. Now you take your mixing bowl here. I've already pre-measured these ingredients. So in this bowl we have got 180 grams of wholemeal flour and 200 grams of plain flour. Now that is all going into one bowl. We are going to take a sieve and sieve in our 1 teaspoon of baking powder and a little pinch of salt. Now that all goes in too. We're going to add 1 dessert spoonful of brown sugar. Now this is optional, but there's no harm in a little bit of sweetness. And you can always use white sugar just in case you don't have any brown. And lastly, we're going to add in 50 grams of margarine. And the reason we are using margarine today is because it is less fat and this is a healthy recipe. So join me over here while we get mixing our ingredients. Okay, we're now going to mix the margarine in with our dry mix. So you're just wanting to break up the margarine into tiny little pieces, just so that it's sort of like dusty crumbs. And you just keep on moving everything around like this. You're like moving your thumbs while mixing the butter, or rather the margarine, sorry, in with the flour. Now you can also move your bowl a little around here, just so that you're getting every piece of margarine mixed in with this flour mix. So you'll see it's very much broken down now and it's almost ready for the milk to be added. Now this is it. So you'll see it's just sort of very like fine breadcrumbs almost. And if you want to make a little dip in the center here and just clean off your hands a little, and then we're going to add in our low-fat milk. Now this is 270 milliliters of low-fat milk, but you might find that you may not need to use all of it, so we're just going to start with about 3/4 of that first. And I am taking a butter knife here and I'm going to move the milk around. And what you want really, ideally, is you want the mix to just come together without it being too dry or too wet. So you want it to be just like damp. So this is coming together pretty nicely, but I know it's going to need a little extra milk, which we've already got here. So if you just pour it very slowly, just a little at a time, because at this stage you're just going to add a little bit at a time until you get it to the consistency that you want it. And sometimes you even might need a little extra milk. Just all depends. Depends on the type of flour, etc. And I'm just going to add a little more. And also at this point, you can always test it out using your hands because they are the best instrument to use. This feels like it's almost there. Still maybe a tiny bit dry. So just a wee tiny bit of milk extra. Now you'll notice I have milk left over here, but you're going to use that milk for brushing onto the tops of the scones before we put them into the oven. So here we are now. This is looking very good. And again, take your hands, mix around the mix, squash it up. That feels good. It is the perfect consistency. It's just damp without being too wet or too dry. So this is our finished product here. Now I'm just going to put some flour onto the work surface here. And there we go. Okay, so now we have got our scone mix out on our floured surface here. And I've just been patting this down with my hand. You can also use a rolling pin if you want, but it is quite soft, so you're able to just do it with your hand. Now I am going to be using a 2-inch cutter to cut out my scones, but don't panic if you don't have one of these, because you can always just be really rustic and cut out your scones with a knife. I'm just going to give a slight demo. So you can just half it this way, half it this way, and then you cut them into triangles. And that is exactly the same thing. They're going to cook the same way as doing it with a cutter. But I'm just going to cut them with a cutter today. So you're just pushing the mix out a little bit. You want it to be thick enough, you know, roughly an inch thick. You don't want to go too thin. And you just start cutting out your scone shapes. And we're going to place them here on a floured baking tray. Now, flouring the baking tray just means that they're not going to stick to the baking tray once they're in the oven. So this scone mix normally makes around 8 scones. And if you're not going to eat them all on the one day, they can be frozen, and then you can just reheat them a little bit for another day for a treat. And this is a great little recipe. I have actually made it a few times now. And I have, on one occasion, I put some oat flakes, you know, just what you would make porridge from. I made these scones with some added oat flakes, so it was around 50 grams of oat flakes. I also have put the grated zest of an orange in them one other day, which just gave them a really nice flavour. And then one other day I decided to put half a teaspoon of ground ginger in there as well, and that was really delicious. And even ginger and orange would be really nice together. Or you could also try, for a special treat maybe someday, you could put 50 grams of low-fat cheddar. That would be really nice too, just to make them quite savoury. If you're going to do that, I would leave out the tablespoon of sugar. Now, as you can see, this last little scone is a little bit smaller and more misshapen than the rest, but it's just going to be fine. So here we go, we have 8 scones, and we're just going to brush them over with our remaining milk. And you know, you can use this remaining milk because it's great to not have any waste. You can also use a beaten egg if you have some beaten egg left over from anything, but I'm just using this because we had it left over. Now today these are not going to get anything else other than the milk on the top, but you could sprinkle a tiny little bit of extra brown sugar, or like I said before, some oat flakes, or you could also put a little bit of cheese if that's what you're going to do. Now these are all ready, and we're going to put them into the oven now, preheated oven of course, and these are going to take 20 minutes in the oven, so I will see you when they're done. have our finished scones. They have had 20 minutes in the oven and they're a lovely golden brown. Now what you want to do is, once they're out of the oven, you can put them onto a wire rack so that they cool down. If you don't have a wire rack, you can always leave them on top of the oven there on the cooker. So these are going to cool down for a while now, and then you'll be able to eat them. So I hope you enjoy, and let me know how you get on baking them.